I was looking around when you're speaking, people were hanging on to each and every word that came out.
So I've learned to be very careful about what I say in Nigeria, because the last time I spoke over here, when I went to the airport, the person at security told me, "Hey, I recognize you. You're Mr. Gill, and you don't know what the hell you're talking about." Okay.
But he was listening to you, right?
Yeah, he had been listening. He said, "I saw you on TV. You're totally wrong. I don't know what the government has told you, but it is completely wrong." Anyway,
Well,
so it went on like this.
But the governor came and he was listening to you, right?
Yeah.
No, it was wonderful, really. And, I read a bit sometimes, right? And I've read quite a lot of things about artificial intelligence, and I use it. I use Siri, and I use Google's platform and GPT. But I must say I've developed a very different perspective listening to you.
Yeah. I think you'll have to hold it. Yeah, now.
I pay for ChatGPT and I pay for Gemini too, and I use Siri, and I read quite a lot. And I must say, after listening to you, I have a very different and better perspective. And the main message I take, and I hope 200 people who are in the room have developed a similar perspective, that people in emerging markets have less to fear than those who live in the US or in Europe. And there are positive things, and there are opportunities. That's the main message I take.
Absolutely.
And the second, time is short. Don't let the train leave the station. There's urgency. And the small suitcase that you mentioned, we have to keep in mind. But anyway, we have an opportunity to ask questions of Indermit before lunch. So let me stop there. Who would like to ask the first question?
So, by the way, I presented this, I think this is the third or the fourth presentation of a report that we haven't yet published. But I presented this in China last week. And at the end of it, somebody summarized it really beautiful. Actually, I think it was Justin Lin who summarized it very well. And he said that if you looked at the differential between the richest country and the poorest country before the Industrial Revolution, the richest country, he said, was Netherlands, and I forget which was the poorest country. But he said it was like 4 times that. By the end of the Industrial Revolution, it was close to 100 times.
Yeah.
So the point here is simply, if you listen too much to those debates that are happening over there, one should listen to them. And of course there are some risks. Anything good comes with risks. So you have to be aware of those. But you can't let that risk paralyze you into inaction. So I think one of the things that and by the way, it has paralyzed some countries into inaction. Unfortunately, these are the countries that could actually benefit the most. So if you look at the poorest economies, I'm talking about the IDA countries and so on, many of them don't even have an AI strategy. And by the way, an AI strategy, look at that, it's not that complicated, It's not that complicated. It's mainly adaptation, and then you have to sort of see which kind of things. So that's one thing. But the point is, you miss this, and you're going to have you're going to be, 50 years from now, you look and say, what the heck did we do,
Or maybe 20 years, right? Not even 50 years. Well, I would not be here 15 years from now. But anyway, who wants to ask the first question? Please, raise your hands. One person here. Let's take 3 questions. One. There was another hand. Governor, you have the first shot. You paid for this, sir. Let's have the governor ask a question, right? Sure. Governor goes first.
Thank you very much, Indermit, for that insightful presentation. And I think it helps to clarify some of the blurred lines, because my take is that not only in developing countries, but also in the advanced world, there's a lot of fuzziness around what is obviously a potentially highly impactful topic. And even when you listen, quite frankly, to some of the stories with respect to strictly the private sector and investing in AI, even that can be very discouraging depending on how you view it. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on something you closed with, which is strategy. You know, is there anywhere, and I take note of the fact that you said something is being published, you know, very shortly, but is there, how do you see that all developing to ensure that, you know, strategies, the appropriate strategies are properly articulated and absorbed along a wide spectrum?
So, you know, we actually did a mapping of all countries that had AI strategies, you know, which ones didn't have an AI strategy. I would have shown you that, but when I was about to present it in China, I was told that the map was wrong, okay? So, yeah. And there's no map on which the Chinese and the Indians agree on, by the way. so we can't actually show maps. But what it showed was that the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, many of them did not have an AI strategy at all. I think the exception among the low-income countries was Rwanda and perhaps Ethiopia. Okay? But other than that, there weren't any. Now, if you ask me, so if you ask me if I met Paul Kagame, could I give him a strategy? I could give him something that I say, okay, beat this, you know? Beat adaptation, beat mostly relying on predictive AI, beat relying mostly on voluntary standards, you know? And maybe you can actually refine it more then. But the elements of a strategy are right there for a low-income country. Now, as you climb up higher, you become more sophisticated, like Nigeria or like India and so on. More work is needed. But again, once you sort of look at these things, I mean, if you look at the, if you look at the concentration part, the capabilities part, and the complements part, if you look at the three A's and so on, it gives you a roadmap and say, okay, here's how I'm going to do it. So, for example, the next time you talk to the minister who is in charge of the AI strategy here, I bet you could ask him a few questions saying, why are you asking the government to go whole hog on mandatory standards when that never worked? You know, why would it work now? Maybe he has a good answer, you know, etc. So that's the way I would do it. But the problem is that the countries that really need a strategy, because what a strategy does is it rules out certain things and it rules in certain things. And it makes things feasible. So even if you're the poorest economy on the planet, you need a strategy for this.
Thank you, Indermit. Let's take the next question here.
Okay. Thank you for this nice presentation. And I think the AI issue is very relevant for Africans. And for me, the question is not whether we should adopt it. No, we should. I just I was in China, invited in a symposium, a Chinese university. I don't remember the name of the university, but I found out that they were using AI everywhere, even in farming. We went to visit a farm where irrigation, everything is controlled by AI. And I asked the guys, how come you are a very populated country. You are not worried about unemployment that you will create. And the response that I received from them is that why, if AI can increase productivity, lower prices,
Yes, yes,
that's the most problem for Chinese.
yes.
It's not, getting job, it's getting a revenue. So for them, AI is an opportunity really to increase production,
Yes.
to also alleviate, the hardness of work.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
therefore, they said it's a good thing.
I'll try to answer your question.
And I remind them that in Africa, before, you were told that anything that is capital intensive is not good for Africa. We should go for technologies that are labor intensive.
Yes.
And that was a mistake, because most of the labor intensive technologies did not work for long. Many factories that were built with the spirit of low labor, low capital intensity, they did not have a lot, because competing against higher productivity of import.
Yeah.
Now,
So
was
I had a
very-
lot of thoughts, but I'm forgetting them as you're.
Sorry.
So you have to end your question so I can give you my thoughts.
Okay, so it's just that what I'm saying is we are convinced. Now the issue is how to reduce dependency. Because AI, if we don't tackle it, if we don't do research on it, we will be dependent on other countries.
Yes.
So
Thank
you.
Former Minister of Mali.
Yes, yes, I know, he's a big shot. But the thing is that the first one is, I think for Africa, everybody says, AI for Africa. Well, if you take a look at productivity growth across the world and see what has been happening, it's been coming down. It's been coming down in advanced economies, it's been coming down. I think there are few exceptions. One of them is India, I think, and a few other places. Why do I talk about productivity growth? Because productivity growth is a summary measure of the inefficiency or the rate of reduction of inefficiency in an economy. And the main thing that distinguishes emerging markets from rich countries is that they're inefficient. They're inefficient in the use of talent, in the use of capital, in the use of energy, in the use of land, everything, okay? Now, one of the simplest things is to say, okay, how do you increase productivity in agriculture? AI has a huge potential. And by the way, maybe other things have a potential too in agriculture. But if you look at productivity in general, if you look at productivity growth in general, declining growth rates and so on, there's nothing else on the horizon that will actually help to increase productivity growth other than AI. And AI is not a minor thing, it's a massive thing. So on, to the extent that you can increase efficiency through greater trade, well, the potential is not that great as compared to 10 years back. If it is demography, well, the potential is not there as much. If it's greater investment, well, the potential isn't there that much, because private investment is the other side of the coin of public debt. So if public debt is very high, private investment is going to be replaced. So you got nothing else, okay? And then you get this boon of AI. So the question is, how do you harness it, okay? And in agriculture, you can harness it. In medical care, you can harness it. You can do things you can tackle these big problems of medical care in rural areas, education in rural areas, huge backlogs in justice, agricultural extension services. These are core responsibilities of governments in most countries, in most developing countries. So in a sense, what it's bringing these new solutions. One has to experiment with them, but I would actually say even that, and so I told you, you have context specificity, yes, which means that something that was invented in London or that was invented for patients in London won't work in Abuja or in Lagos. But it may well be that when Lagos comes up with a good adaptation of that technology, it'll work in Accra, it'll work in Abuja, it'll work in Kano. So you don't have to do it for every specific context, you just need to get nearer and nearer to it. So when India invests a lot in these things, it'll help in Bangladesh as well, and Pakistan, and Myanmar, and so on, you know? So I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, if one thinks about these things seriously, you see the risks very clearly because those are the ones that are being amplified in the debates in advanced economies. But the benefits are generally, there isn't as much of a light that is shone on the benefits, and that's what we tried to do in this report.
Thank you. So we have now 5.5 minutes left, if I'm correct. Let's take next question here, please. Kindly be short so that we have opportunity for more questions. Right there.
You have to be short because I can't remember the beginning of your question.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Nekle. I'm the CEO of OPE Nigeria. In your presentation, you mentioned that you're on voluntary standards and interoperability. You mentioned that this has to be something that comes from the market or from the industry. But we've seen a scenario in Nigeria where for the payment systems, where there is no mandating by the regulators of interoperability, it has not worked. Why do you think that AI interoperability will be achieved without mandating it? Thank you.
I'm not saying that all of AI's benefits will be achieved or all of AI's risks will be mitigated. But you know, we wrote a whole report about how standards can help, how standards can help development and how standards can hamper development, right? And what we find is that one of the problems is that the main difference between middle-income countries, emerging markets, and advanced economies are in there. Advanced economies depend a lot more on voluntary standards than on mandatory standards as compared to emerging markets.
Correct.
And emerging markets have much weaker national quality infrastructure, which is needed to enforce these standards. So on both sides, they're using standards too much and they have less capacity to actually implement
Absolutely.
them. That's one of the things. The other thing that you mentioned, as you were asking this question, the thought I had was, if you talk with the Indian private sector, you talk to people like Nandan Nilekani and others who are thinking about these problems in the case of India, I think a lot of the lessons from India and Nigeria can be shared with each other. So India and Nigeria should be like this, you know, in terms of this thing. Because India and Nigeria are both middle powers in this sense. You're not going to be able to catch up to the US or to China, and you don't have to in everything. But on the other hand, you want to sort of make sure that things like interoperability, where should you seek sovereignty? Where should you pray? You know, and where should you have a specific strategy of interoperability? You know, and I think this is something that one can you can actually learn a lot from. But there is no substitute for taking these technologies and infusing them into the economy. You go to any city in China, from Gansu in the interior to Hangzhou on the coast, you see that these standards or you see that these technologies have been infused. The same thing is true in India. If you find, for example, take a look at India's digital stack and so on. India has managed to make these technologies available to very poor people, for very small transactions of small, you know. So I think that the same thing has to be done. But China is the
Amazing.
perfect example
Amazing.
of this.
Yep. One more question. Lourdes.
Excuse me, sir. Can I just come in here quickly?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, we have the director of the IT department of the central bank. She's watching online and she sent her question. She's thanking the presenter, Dr. Gill, for your insightful presentation, and also to note that the CBN has started its AI implementation journey by establishing an AI policy and an AI strategy and having an AI playbook which has a 4-year roadmap. So the question now to you is, how should regulators ensure that AI models used in credit scoring anti-money laundering and financial supervision reflect local economic realities rather than assumptions embedded in models trained on advanced AI? So very important question.
You know, so I'm thinking she's a lawyer because she's asking a question to which she already knows the answer. I bet she knows a heck of a lot more about how to use AI in organizations like the central bank. But one of the things I think that so I actually heard an exchange like this in Portugal a few weeks ago between a central banker and the IMF. And because the IMF also has a strategy like this one, an AI strategy. And I think what the central bank should be doing is asking the IMF to intermediate between central banks what their AI strategies and all are. Because every bank is doing this, you know? So I would actually say you should, I bet you know the answer to this question, and I know that people at the IMF may actually be better placed to actually answer this question.
Okay, Indermit, thank you. Lourdes, final question.
Well, AI needs a lot of financing, needs from...
Lourdes is from Cornell University. She has a think tank there.
Yeah, I am the director of the Emerging Markets Institute at Cornell University. And so AI needs a lot of financing, and also countries need to see where they are going. Semiconductors, LLMs, etc., talent, etc. So the question is that in Africa, and tomorrow I'm moderating a panel about all the fragilities in many countries, so maybe here is an opportunity to collaborate. You cannot have everything in Nigeria. You suggested collaborating with India, but what about first collaborating within Africa in the framework of the African Common Free Trade Agreement? So how do you see that?
I completely agree with you, because actually, given the fact that I keep saying that AI is more context specific, so if a neighboring country actually ends up investing in adapting a technology that it gets from, let's say, the UK or from India and so on, then you don't have to invest nearly as much. You just need to collaborate with that country. It's absolutely right. So to the extent that agriculture has similarities, to the extent that economic structures have similarities, social norms, health conditions, etc. So to the extent that they are context specific, regional cooperation has to be a big, big part of this. And we actually mentioned this in the report. If you're disappointed with any of my answers, if you have a lot of questions in your thing, just wait a week and look at the report. It's really well done. It's long, it's long, but you can use AI to give you short versions of it.
So how do people get the report? Those who don't know the World Bank.
The report will be launched on the 4th or the 5th. On the 5th. On the 5th. It'll be launched on the 5th of August. And it'll be on the World Bank website. What we can do is we can send it to the Emerging Markets Forum right away, and you can share it with everybody.
So we can do that.
But Nigerians are very plugged in, so I know that the folks in Nigeria will immediately get it.
But if I may say, you know, we have lots of Nigerians here, but we have people from throughout Africa and people from outside Africa. So, you know, WDRs, the World Development Reports, are very, very good, if I may say so. And under your leadership, they become even better. So I really want them to.
There's actually one more thing that we do. We've started something called the Institute for Economic Development. Mm-hmm. The World Bank has this habit of taking things that are really valued by clients and axing them. You know, we had something called the World Bank Institute. Right. So what we've done is we've revived that in a smaller form. And one of the things that institute does is it actually makes available information like this AI, WDR, et cetera, in forms that people can tailor to themselves and so on. You know, you can listen to it, you can see it as a conversation between people, you can do it in 50 languages immediately, okay? So that's what we try to do. So we use AI to also sort of make sure that we equalize access to knowledge. Because what we found is that in places like the World Bank, we do all of this analysis, And people in rich countries are very quick to get that information. And people in poorer countries who probably need that information a heck of a lot more, they tend not to be. So I think for a long time, when we do analysis and we don't spend enough on engaging, like in places like this, we tend to exacerbate the inequality of information. And information is gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll have your permission to put the report on our website.
100%.
Wonderful. Good. So Indermit, you have a few minutes for your final thoughts. Please.
So I'm done and I'm very hungry. So let's.
So, thank you very much. You'll hear him again in the concluding sessions. Indermit has agreed to share his thoughts on the entire forum tomorrow evening. But please, let's thank him again for coming all the way from Washington.
Please, another round of applause for Dr. Gill.